Thank you for having me here today and second of the 5-part series. So I feel grateful to be able to be a part of the group and sharing. My grandmother passed away when I was 11 of pancreatic and liver cancer, and something that affected. I wish that there were classes and things to take to just for my mom and I to go through the process of healing and understanding and learning. So that is why I want to volunteer and donate my time and knowledge to help somebody out and do whatever I can in my way. So I'm Dr. Natasha Nelson, and what I do is, as a health practitioner, I'm in South Bay. I've been a chiropractor for 24 years, and I also have a master's in spiritual psychology. And those two combined is what allows me to put together the mind, the body, the spirit, the somatic healing, and really understanding the mindset of addiction, depression, anxiety, and the emotional healing that goes with the health of the body. Is my daughter in the middle? I like to put her up there because she's part of my life and important to me. And that's the book that I wrote while my mom was sick. My mom actually passed away of ALS. And when she was sick, part of what allowed me to heal was writing. And I didn't intend to write a book. I wanted to write a journal for me, turned into some good information that I ended up publishing a book. So that's a little bit about me and my background. And what I do, really kind of that high performance educator and specialist, is integrating the 5 pillars of health, which is how we came up with the 5 pillars for this program. And they're broken down a little bit in each one. So today is going to be about nutrition in part 2. Some review of last week. If you didn't get to see that one, it will be, you can get the recording. And if you were here, it is going to have some overlap. So it's not the same, but there are some similar points that we're just going to expand from there. So when I talk about nutrition and the chemical pillar of health, it's really from the place of how much energy does it take for your body to metabolize, detox, process, digest, and use everything that goes in your body. Because everything that goes in either provides energy or depletes energy from you. And especially when you're in the healing process and trying to sleep and trying to heal, you want to give your body every opportunity to use the energy in a way that's healing instead of detracting from your health. So this is we're going to go into the numbers. So there's going to be some overlap. So last week we talked about the three food groups. And the first one being proteins, that breaks down into amino acids, and that the building block of every muscle and your tendons and tissues and organs and hormones are all from protein. And once we know what protein is, and it's whether it's meat and fish and nuts, it's really about, well, how much should we be getting on a daily basis? And this is where, the numbers are general, and I wanted to do this so that it would make a little bit more sense, so that you could have an understanding of the numbers to help you create a nutrition plan that works for you. And so the question is, well, how much protein are we supposed to eat every day? Well, we start with, how much do you weigh? So I used 150 pounds, which is equal to about 168 kilograms. So it's going to be, it says 0.08 to 1.1. That's the literal number. I'm like, let's just round it up, and make it simple. But a 150-pound person, it's about 68 grams of protein per day. And when you really think about it, it's not very much, because 1 gram of protein is 4 calories. So you're only getting about 275, 300 calories a day of protein. So I want you to think about this number as the very, very bare minimum, absolute minimum. But it really comes down to, what is it that you are trying to do? What is your nutrition program for? If it's for nourishment, if it's for healing and repair, if it's to work out and sustained energy, this is where you play with the numbers a little bit based on what your needs are. So this is how you start with the foundation. So of the food groups, number 2 is the carbohydrates. That breaks down to glucose. and it's energy for every cell to function. That's metabolism. We have the complex carbohydrates, which are the long chain sugar molecules for sustained energy. And we have the simple sugars, which are the quick energy, fruit juice, honey. And neither one is good or bad. It really depends on what you need. If you are training for a marathon, you're going to want something sustained energy. If you're having a low sugar afternoon and kind of starting to fall asleep around 2 o'clock and you need a little energy boost, most people make the mistake and reach for either coffee or candy, because somebody always has one nearby, for quick energy. And this is where you'd want to reach for something, just the fruit. Juice works, but it's extra concentrated, so it may not be the best option, but it falls into that category. So carbohydrates are really going to be around 45 to 65% of your daily intake. Now, you can survive without, the long chain, the grains, the pasta, bread, rice. This idea that you have to have this amount, your 45 to 65% of carbohydrates in a day, does not mean it has to come from grains and pasta. So your carbohydrates, if you want fruits and vegetables to be the 45 to 65%, then you can totally do that. And that's fine. It's actually probably preferred for the body, but it doesn't have to be this way. What you don't want, though, you actually don't want all of your carbohydrate daily intake to come from the long chained, excuse me, the grains and the pasta and the breads. It's just a lot for your body. And if you're not utilizing the energy that comes from those sources, you're going to store it and your body just stores it as fat. And it will also break down. It could increase blood sugar levels. So that can cause inflammation, that can decrease the healing process. So it's really understanding what is it that you need, what is it that you're eating for. So breaking it down, when is your workout? When are you going to be sleeping? What is it that you're doing? So when to add the carbohydrates. I think I missed something in there, but this is, I think I put it in the wrong order. This is my mom. And I always make this one of my slides because when my mom was sick, one of the things that I loved was coffee because I wanted energy, and coffee meant sugar. And I was eating a lot of sugar. I was putting like 3 to 4 spoons of sugar in every cup of coffee. And I was getting 3 to 4 cups of coffee per day. Whew, you do the math? Yes, it's a lot of sugar. So this bag from Costco is a 4.5-pound bag. I was probably going through that in about 3 months. I know. So I share that because, just because I know all the information, as you know, it doesn't mean it's always practical. So it's being aware of what's going on in your life and realizing stress has a way of changing what we know we're supposed to do, but it happens. So that was why the slide is in there at this time. Because I do want to talk about sugar and how it relates with insulin. Sugar in the bloodstream is actually toxic and it's dangerous. And the reason is that it causes inflammation in the arterial walls, which leads to plaque buildup and narrowing of the arteries, which increases blood pressure. Most people think about inflammation, if you hit your arm and you get a bruise and it swells up, we think of inflammation as swelling like outward. But when we have sugar in the bloodstream, the arterial walls inflame inward. So instead of having like a nice big round artery where the blood can flow, it starts to get smaller and smaller, which means that the blood circulation becomes a smaller stream. So you get less oxygen, but that's what then makes the blood pressure, because it's a smaller space. So blood pressure goes up. And so I'm one of those people that likes information and how it makes sense, because then when you're thinking about sugar, you're not thinking about just, oh, I didn't have that much, or I'll go work out, or it's not that bad. It's recognizing when your body is already toxic or inflamed, or if you already have high blood sugar, blood pressure, then it matters how much sugar you eat. And then we talk about, well, how much sugar should you be getting in a day? Oh, this is where you'd be shocked at how much sugar you're actually getting. So back to the picture with my mom and my coffee, you know, I don't eat a lot of sweets. And so if somebody had asked me like, oh, how much sugar are you getting? I would have been like, oh, not that much. It wasn't until I actually had to write it down that I could see, wow, how much sugar I was getting. Because really, we should be getting no more than 20 grams per day. And the sugar is going to be the added sugar in food. It's not fruit itself. The sugar in fruit, I don't count that as part of this number. So the 20 grams is the added sugar, added sugar. It can come in the form usually in high fructose corn syrup or anything that's added. 1 teaspoon of sugar has 5 grams. So you realize that just 4 spoons of sugar a day, you're already hitting the 20. That's about how much is in a yogurt. It's about how much is in like protein bars and meal replacement shakes. Often they have a lot of sugar in them, and often it's just about your entire day all at once. So the thing about sugar, though, that people don't realize is sugar is, yes, it's fuel for our cells. It's also food for bacteria and yeast. And that's what allows it all to grow. And that's why, dentists talk about why you don't want sugar stuck in your teeth, because the bacteria feeds off of sugar when it gets stuck in your teeth. Well, that's also what's happening in your intestines, large and small. You get sugar and it feeds in the bacteria, and you can have bacterial. If you have a bacterial infection, it just allows it to grow, and yeast, and that will alter so many parts of the healing process, but especially in the gut, in your intestines, is where your body absorbs the nutrients from the food. So if you have a lot of bacteria and yeast growth, your body will not be able to absorb what you are actually eating. The third food group are the fats. Fats break down to lipids. Lipids are the protective barrier for every cell. It's the phospholipid bilayer, so double layer to keep every cell as intact with all of the water on the inside and all of the mitochondria and your DNA. All of that needs to be on the inside of the cell, and the layers just keeps everything from getting in and keeps the stuff from getting out and keeps it healthy. Your immune system and your hormones also require fats and the oils in order to develop and to maintain brain tissue, nerves. All of that is made from fats and also protected by the fats that we eat. And so if we're not getting enough fats and oils, we lose the protective barrier around the brain and the spinal column and all the nerves. So when it comes to fats and oils, the lipids, you want to have around 75 to 90 grams per day. And to break that down, 1 egg is 5 grams. A teaspoon of coconut oil is 14. Avocado at 15, salmon at 27. So you can start to see, okay, if you have a little bit in each of your meal, you're going to start to get enough 75 to 90. Now, where you get the fats from does matter, because, yes, a good marbled steak can sound so good, but when it's a hard oil in a steak or meat, if we eat that, it'll also harden in our bodies. So it's not the healthiest version. This is going to be the healthy fats and omega oils. It's one of the few supplements that, while I don't recommend a lot because I don't know your own personal history, You usually want to supplement the oils because it is hard to get enough good quality oil in the diet. So around 2,500 should say milligrams per day, sorry. 2,500 milligrams per day. But make sure you talk to your primary care because omega oils decreases your body's ability to clot. So if you're going to be having surgery or if you're naturally already, you bruise easily, it becomes a factor. And just for reference, 1 gram of fat is about 9 calories. Not that you're supposed to count calories, but just knowing the number sometimes just helps know where you're getting your calories from and why certain foods seem so dense and so high in calories when you're like, it's so little. So if you have, an oatmeal breakfast ball and it has oils in it and made with avocado oil and all these things, and you're like, it's one little thing and it's got, 300 calories, you can understand where the calories are coming from. So I touched on this last week, but I'm going to go into a little more detail about what makes food ripen and rot so that a green banana that goes from yellow to polka dot brown to mushy to the point we make banana bread. And last week when I talked about it, I said those are the enzymes that makes food dead or alive. Every food in its natural state has the enzymes required. They're inherent in the food that helps break it down into the smallest particle for your body to absorb. Because your body doesn't absorb protein, it absorbs and utilizes amino acids. So you need enzymes in the food to break it down. So same with carbohydrates, same with fats. And this is how the food industry is able to give food a longer shelf life. It's by taking out the enzymes so that the food can't break down. Just putting my, gotta plug this in, okay. And so when food enzymes are taken out of the food to give it a shelf life, doesn't mean, oh my God, that food is bad, don't have it. But it means understanding that you either need to combine it with other foods that have enzymes in it when you eat so that your body can break it down, or supplement with an enzyme. But it's really understanding what is happening to the food, because if you think you're eating healthy foods, but there's no enzymes and it's not getting broken down, your body is actually malnourished. Even though you're getting calories and your body will store those, you're not getting the nourishment from it. And so I put this in there in that I know, food has evolved, and understanding food labels and understanding why the foods that, I grew up on, that we had in childhood, people go, well, it's the same food. Like, what's wrong with having a, Wonder Bread or having fries or having the few basic things? And the difference is they're no longer the same food that they were 10, 15, 30 years ago. They've been changed so much with the food industry to give it a longer shelf life in order for things to, between planes, trains, automobiles, food has a longer shelf life and a lot more chemicals in it. And so I want you to think about, if food doesn't have any enzymes to break it down and it's got all these chemicals in it, what happens to all of this undigested and unprocessed food? And this is where we understand the numbers as they relate in digestion and absorption, because it doesn't matter how much you eat. What matters is what your body can digest and absorb and actually use. So what happens to food when it's not broken down into its smallest absorbable elements? So this is there's a picture of the intestines here. You got the small intestines in the middle and the colon. And combined, if you were to stretch it out, it's about 20 feet of tubing. And you're thinking, where do 20 feet go? It's all in there. It's just from the front, it's like under the diaphragm, from the side, it takes up that whole gut area. You've got 20 feet in there. And every item of food has to go through the whole thing And it has to be at the right pace, not too fast, not too slow, because your body has to absorb just the right amount and absorb water and leave some things behind. And it's a very sensitive system, and it doesn't want to be disturbed, not too fast, not too slow. And I realized I've been talking so fast and so much that I hadn't not checked in with you, Rebecca, to see if there are any questions so far.
None so far. Thank you.
Okay, great, good. Thank you. Sorry about that. And so what happens to food when it's not broken down? So this is a cross section. If you take a slice of the intestines, that's what it would look like on this bottom left here. And it goes through all the tubes. That's like the inside lining of the tube of your intestines. So all of the food that doesn't have enzymes in it, that your body doesn't break down, it'll get stuck along the lining of your intestines and the tube. And I want you to think about like drywall. So if you take out the nail in the wall, you want to plug the hole, that spackle drywall that you put on the wall, that's kind of what the food particles do. They stick to the lining and the walls of your intestines. And that is just called poop plaque, because that you'll remember and you won't forget it. And when you're eating it, you're not eating the poop plaque. Sorry, you're eating the food that creates the poop plaque. But it's not just food, and it's not just the partially digested stuff. It's all of the chemical toxins that were in the food that are now stuck in the intestinal wall and lining. And this is why we are seeing huge rise of colon cancer, because it gets stuck in there, and we're seeing it with people at a younger and younger age because they've grown up with all of the processed foods that are not nutritionally sound and don't break down properly. So poop plaque that gets in there, this is where the value of why we want to do a cleanse, why we want to, the first part of the cleanse is really just food with fiber. So kale and broccoli and rough raw food will help pull some of that out. When it comes to cleanses, there are a lot of different ways to do it. Not all ways are good. Some are really bad for you. So I don't go into detail about them because they're very specific, because if a cleanse that is done incorrectly will can interfere with medications that you're taking. It can interfere with the body's ability to regulate, and it can throw the body off really badly. So just know that you can talk to a doctor. You can talk to me after, set up a time, whatever, if you have questions, but I don't give details about how to do a cleanse here in the general. But why you want to do one is so vital to get the poop plaque out, because this is actually part of what, not just cancer in the bowel, but cancer in the body, because your intestines is where everything is absorbed into the bloodstream and travels through the whole body. So the toxins that are in the food that get into the bloodstream now travel to different parts of the body and affect the cells in the body. And that happens actually every day normally, but we have an immune system with like Pac-Man cells that'll go in and kill them. But when they're overloaded and the immune system is struggling, it's going to cause a whole host of other issues. So leaky gut is not really a disease as much as it is a syndrome, which means it's a collection of symptoms and things in one. And that's where the intestines, the lining, there's so much stuff in there, and it gets there, it breaks down, so it's not sealed. And that's how the chunks of poop plaque get into the bloodstream and can travel in every part of the body. And this is at the root of inflammation and injury and most disease, is that when food is undigested, the chemicals and the toxins are foreign, and they're not supposed to be in the bloodstream. So your immune system recognizes it as foreign and kicks into gear. And one of the first phases of inflammation of your, I'm sorry, of your immune system is inflammation. Because that's when all of the white blood cells and all of the Pac-Man cells and T cells and everything say, oh my gosh, there's a foreigner, we need to go and handle it. So depending on where this part of the body is being dealt with, inflammation, how do you know if you have it? Well, if your doctor said anything with itis, so if you have arthritis, bursitis, tendinitis, that means inflammation in a part of the body. That's where those toxins collected. That's where the immune system is responding the most. And you can have an autoimmune disease, which is when your immune system can't distinguish a foreign cell from your own natural body's healthy cell, and it just starts to destroy all of them. So the reason that I put this in here, even though it's, we're talking about numbers and nutrition, is you have to understand the purpose of food and what it is that you're trying to do with food. It's not just about calories that you're supposed to eat. It's about the purpose of food. Foods are naturally either going to create inflammation or they are a natural anti-inflammatory food. So things that are green, the more vibrant the color, the greens, the yellow, red, they're a natural anti-inflammatory food. So I know this is a lot, so I hope you'll go back and look because it's a lot of information, but I hope it's making sense as to how to help design the foods that, like what you're going to eat each meal. So this is a picture in the middle in the purple here of that phospholipid bilayer I spoke about. And it's the protective barrier of the cells. And the reason that fats and oils are so vital is because they also protect every cell. They're supposed to be intact so that the chemicals don't go into the cell and damage the DNA. Because damages to the DNA is what the fundamental, definition of cancer is. When the damaged DNA cell replicates and makes another damaged cell and another damaged cell to the point where it grows so much. And so as you're going through this process of healing, why the oils are so important to help restore slowly your cells to become stronger and stronger. It takes time, but over time, your cells get stronger and rebuild properly and healthily, is that even a word? Healthy, to help prevent and keep you from, remitting and later on. So those are my diagrams. I like pictures and like colors because things make sense for me with pictures. And so part of the numbers of nutrition is about water and hydration, the overlooked piece. And, it starts with, well, how much water are we supposed to drink every day? Because we were taught 8 ounces, 8 glasses, 8 this, a couple bottles. There's a lot of misinformation. But when we understand why, and then we'll understand what we need, it makes it easy to remember the numbers. So the whole point of with water is being hydrated. And so if you think about your red blood cells, remember back to biology, you have red blood cells and it's a biconcave cell. You're like, what does that even mean? It just means that one blood cell carries 2 oxygen molecules throughout the body. So I drew this picture here. So if you have 3 cells, think about these 3 cells here, you get 6 oxygen molecules that travel in the circulation to feed the body. So, right? Sounds good. Where does water come into this? Why does it matter? Because when the body is dehydrated, those red blood cells stick together. And they stick together in a way like if you were stacking pennies together and you stack them up. And why that is a problem is now those 3 red blood cells that were supposed to carry 6 oxygen molecules, when they get stuck together, now they only carry 2. And so you've cut your oxygen capacity in the body drastically so that you're going to feel tired. And you think that you are tired when likely you are dehydrated. And people make the mistake and go, well, I'm tired. I'm going to eat something. I'm going to eat sugar. I'm going to eat something to give me energy. which actually causes an increase of dehydration. So this is where, when you feel tired, start with water to help break up those red blood cells so that oxygen can be carried to the body. Oxygen is going to give you energy. So back to my water. How much are you supposed to have? Half of your body's weight in ounces per day. So I can't see you, but I've done this lecture enough to know that there are people who go, hold on, 75 ounces a day? That's a lot of water. If I drink that much water, I'm going to be up all night going to the bathroom. And you are if you try to drink it all at the end of the day. If you start early in the day and you have a little bit throughout the day, you'll be fine. But also remember, your bladder is a muscle. And just like every muscle, it gets stronger with use. So your bladder will learn how to hold more water and hold more fluid so that you don't have to go to the bathroom all the time. So half of your body's weight in ounces. A standard glass is about 8 ounces. So you need about 9.5, 10 of those a day. Most of us carry, some type of water bottle, Nalgene bottle. Those are 32 ounces. So really, if you think about like a water bottle, it's like 2.5 in a day. And when I say 2.5, you're like, you know what? That's actually not that much. It's doable. 2.5. Yes, you can do it. But that's the minimum. And what do I mean by minimum? When do you have to add more? Well, water is water, and water is not liquid in this. So if you're drinking Gatorade or juice or soda or energy drinks or coffee, you want the general math is going to be for every ounce of non-water, you're going to want an additional ounce of water. So that's when you start to go, oh my gosh, that's a lot of water. Yes, so if you cut out all the stuff in your day that's not water, it won't feel so much. So this is where what you can have as a substitute would be like an herbal tea, like the chamomile teas and just herbal teas. Coffee, if it's decaffeinated, okay, it's going to be, but most people don't just drink black and decaf coffee. They want it with stuff in it. So be aware of that. But so that's a general rule of juice is just, it's in there because juice is high in sugar and you don't get all of the fiber and all the water you would with eating the fruit. And people drink a lot of juice thinking that it's healthy and that it's good, and it becomes a lot. And so recognize how much and why it needs to have water to balance that out. Any questions so far? Oh, I think you might be on overload of a lot of information and a lot of numbers, and that's okay. You can always watch the replay. It'll be fine. So any questions about water or about the food breaking down and the poop plaque and all that
So
stuff? Yes.
there was a question, is the key phrase quote unquote processed foods when it comes to avoiding poop plaque?
So yes, so poop plaque really shows up from processed foods, anything that is hard for the body to digest. And it's hard for the body to digest food that's been processed. Anything that comes in a box, really, in a bag, and if it has a shelf life, that's where you're going to start. It's like there's not a list of everything that's a processed food or not, but the longer the shelf life, the more processed it likely is, and the harder for your body to use it because it just doesn't break down properly. So your body doesn't really use it very well, and your body will use some, it'll excrete some, but some of it does start to get stuck in the bowels. Does that help answer the question?
Yes, thank you. That's all for questions.
Okay, great. So I want to take the time because that's a lot of information. That's all I put on there for the slides. In closing, the QR code goes to my website if you want more information. And this is my podcast that I talk about Unleash Your Life Force, in which I break down the 5 pillars and I go through every topic about health, about physical, chemical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And it's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and Amazon podcasts. You can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram too. So feel free to reach out and don't hesitate. Like, I'm more than happy to talk with anybody in private. If you want a session and there's no charge, I'll get, let me do that for you. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have a personal question, so you don't have to bring it up in the group here. But I want to open it up to any questions. So I'm going to stop. I think I'm going to stop the sharing here, and we can stop the recording. And that way, if anybody has personal